So, bit of a problem with my Peugeot 308. My wife went to start the car the other day and cranked, but no start. Obviously it's usually a fuel or spark or timing issue. I thought I'd start with the obvious. What I found was, when you stick the key in the ignition, you can normally hear the fuel pump prime. Couldn't actually hear that sound, so came to the conclusion that it was the fuel pump. But since then I've worked out that it's actually quite an intermittent problem, and in this video I'll just show you the root cause, or what I believe was the root cause, and how to remedy the situation. So at the moment, I haven't started the car in a couple of days, so I'll see if it works today, but it has been intermittent. I'll put the key in. Perhaps you'll hear the fuel pump prime, perhaps we won't, and hopefully we can just start the car. Okay, so sounded a little bit rough, but you could hear the fuel pump priming there, so I'm sure we'll have no trouble starting it. Yep, so that seems pretty good, no worries. Let's take a look at where the fuel pump's located and what I actually found was causing the issue for me here. Okay, so I've removed the connector. You'll see there's some signs of corrosion, or perhaps even the plastic's melted and deformed. It's clearly corroded in there. And also on the other end. It's a bit difficult to see, but there's clearly some signs of stress and perhaps damage in there. I found when the fault became intermittent, just jiggling the connector would resolve the issue. But for example, the other day I had a very hot day and had the same problem again. So it could be remedied with a bit of a jiggle again, but I think the long-term solution will be to replace this whole connector. Hopefully it's something we can source and recrimp it, put a new connector on, and I think this is a good measure. I'll replace the fuel pump anyway. I don't quite trust what's going on in here. I mean, there could be a fundamental fault with the pump itself that's caused that pin to melt. Now, I'm a little bit curious to see what the current consumption's like. I suspect maybe if the fuel filter is heavily blocked, we might see a higher current draw, which might be causing the connector to foul up the way that it is. So let's just try cranking it. So 7.2 amps. It does seem to elevate a bit once the car starts, but I guess that's just responding to the battery voltage with the alternator running. It'd be interesting to see what a new pump actually pulls, but it's actually a considerable amount of current to go through the tiny connectors that they've specified. So a new fuel pump is installed. Just curious to see what the current draw is like now. It's actually considerably less than earlier, so maybe that's just an indication that the filter was getting clogged and the pump was working harder, and maybe that affected the connector. But I'm going to have a closer look at the connector. I have a feeling that maybe it's not necessarily melted, perhaps actually some fuel's leaking through there. So we'll take a closer look, but the new pump's in and seems to be running okay. Much quieter than the old one, so that's probably a bit of a telltale sign that your fuel pump's going.
Now make sure you've got a scan tool handy, because there's a pretty good chance you'll have an engine fault and a couple of codes you'll need to clear. This is the code that I saw related to the fuel pressure, so clearing that should resolve that one.